The Pro-Tech Malibu changed the knife world when it was released, and to this day, it still has one of the best button lock flipper actions on the market. Or does it? Everything, of course, has a little bit of variance. Quite like this, crisply satisfying, easy decision. On this episode of Beat the Icon, we're going to see if there's anything out there that can truly take the crown from this EDC masterpiece. Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the KnifeCenter, and welcome to this episode of Beat the Icon, where we're taking a look at the absolutely iconic Pro-Tech Malibu. What an awesome knife. Now, button locks have certainly been around before the Malibu came around, but it was the way the Malibu did its thing that left a huge impact on the industry, and we saw such a proliferation of button lock flippers after this knife came out. And really, it all comes down to the action itself. It's crisp and fidgetable and just more satisfying and faster to open and close than the stuff that came before it. Beyond that, it's just a genuinely useful knife as well. It's got a refinement to it. It's available in two blade shapes, this reverse tanto if you want to call it that, or a modified Wharncliffe profile. It's not overbuilt, but neither is it dainty. This is a knife that feels like it could get real work done with it without it being a boat anchor in the pocket. These are made in the USA, and standard materials for the model are currently aluminum in various handle colors and a Magna Cut blade steel. So you've got a great blend of toughness and edge retention for a stainless steel, and the price is about $225 for the smooth aluminum versions here. Prices go up depending on what you are interested in, and you could get something like this textured version right here. That's about $260, but of course, it's Pro-Tech, so they do a lot of really cool, fancier versions as well. It's also got a deep carry pocket clip, non-reversible. Could that be a way for the competitors to set themselves apart? We're going to find out. But really, again, it all comes down to that action. It's crisp to flick open. You've got that finger-safe closing action with that drop shut nature that you saw right there. Is anything else as good? Let's find out. I've got something, the first suggestion I'm going to show you here is a bit of a wild card, and I will admit it. May I direct your attention to the Kershaw Leek series of knives. No, it is not a button lock, but it is an assisted opening flipper, and you've got two blade shapes, a modified Wharncliffe and a reverse tanto, which you could feast your eyes on. Length is about the same. It's about a 3-inch blade on these compared to the Pro-Tech's, about 3.25, 3.3. But I like this as an option. Let's look at the blue one here first. Same thing's going on. Magna Cut steel, aluminum handles, just like the Malibu. But instead of $225 for that version, we're at about $120 for this version of the Leek, also made in the US. Liner lock, so it's not that same kind of finger-safe closing action where your fingers never cross the path of the blade. It's a more deliberate close. The Malibu definitely has it beat on that front. And it has great action thanks to the spring torsion bar assisted opening going on right here. Feels good. Yeah, it's not as crisp as the Malibu. It's also about half the price. You could get this version right here. The Random Leek is what this is called. There are fewer options within the Random Leek lineup compared to the standard Leek blade shape right here. But this with the stainless steel frame locking handles is about $93 with a 14C28N blade. Either way, I think this is, well, maybe not a, shall we say, square comparison, or maybe it's not right in the strike zone for some of you. I think it's really fun to think about in any case, especially when we have the same colors. So I don't know. What do you think? Would you go for a Malibu or would you go for a Leek and save a bit of coin? If you do, I definitely think it has a similar blend of refinement and hard work usability, even if it's not quite as robust feeling in the hand as the Malibu would be. But hey, maybe you like the slimmer feel. Let's keep the initial comparisons going, at least with some more affordable options. More, maybe not like cheap knives, but more budget oriented than the Malibu. And the CIVIVI Chevalier II feels pretty squarely inspired by the Malibu. It's about just under $70. You got a 3.5-inch blade with this modified sheep's foot profile, so not identical to the reverse tanto of the Malibu, but not too far outside the ballpark either. And you've also got aluminum handles, just like the Malibu does. You're not going to get a super steel like MagnaCut with this CIVIVI, of course, but we do have Sandvik 14C28N, which, while it won't hold the same kind of edge for as long as the MagnaCut will, you've got a great degree of toughness for a stainless steel, which should help the stability at the edge, keep it from chipping or rolling quite as much. The geometry is also a little bit slicier than the Malibu. The same could be said for the Leek we just talked about as well. We have a reversible pocket clip. It is deep carry, just like the Malibu, but it is also reversible, unlike the Malibu. The Malibu does have, however, a small hidden lanyard point here at the back, and that's not something you're going to get with the Chevalier. But, as I said, the Malibu, for all of its positive qualities, the thing that set it over the top to becoming an icon is the action. So how does the CIVIVI compare? It's pretty good. It's not quite as crisply satisfying as the Malibu, but it's really good. And I realize this is going to be really hard to communicate over an internet video, the feel in the hand. So I would ask you just trust me on this. Really good though, and quite affordable. Next up, the QSP Penguin in button lock flipper format for about $65. We've got the same steel as the CIVIVI, the 14C28N, slightly shorter blade shape, and again, a sheep's foot profile, and a little bit smaller than the Malibu overall. Not a huge amount off, but you definitely have less usable edge on the QSP. Other than that, I think it nails some things pretty good. You've got that deep carry pocket clip, quite deep carry in fact, as you can see it's sticking out the back, and it is reversible. You've got thumb studs in addition to the button lock and the flipper, so if you want to open it that way, it's quite nice. But again, let's bring it back to the flipping action. How are we doing here? A little bit softer. Not soft, but just compared to the best, a little bit softer. Still quite nice though. Good feel in the hand, again, not dainty, not overbuilt. It feels like a solid working design that's suitable for just carrying every day for the average person. Maybe lacks a little bit of the classier refinement of some of these versions, but $65, what do you think? Next up, the Vosteed Corgi is an interesting option. This is using their Trek lock, which is another name for a button lock. $62. Again, 14C28N blade steel with its modified sheep's foot profile, at about 3 inches, coming in again shorter than the Malibu, but overall length not hugely different between the two. Again, less sharpened edge. However, let's check out the action. It comes down to that, right? Doesn't feel as snappy. You can see it's harder or easier to get this to fail if you kind of go real gentle on it than it would be with a Malibu. It does offer an additional opening method, however. If you're into front flippers, you could front flipper it. Just like the Malibu, you could of course flick it open and close by holding the button down. But if you're really after the great flipping action that the Malibu brings to the table, I don't think this is quite in the same ballpark, even if functionally you've got similar things going on. A little bit of girth to the handle, not overbuilt, but not a shrinking violet either. Let's start to work our way up the price chain a little bit with some more premium feeling things. We're going to start with something that's still a bit of a bargain in my mind. That is the Kansept Kosame button lock flipper. This is about $113, and it sort of splits or shoots the gap on either side of the Malibu in terms of its materials, with more premium handle material and less premium blade steel. Blade steel is 154 cm, which is perfectly fine. It's just not a powder metallurgy super steel like MagnaCut is. The handle, however, is titanium, so you've got that higher perceived value of that material. Vibes are pretty similar. 3.37-inch blade. And yeah, this is leaning more towards the modified Wharncliffe, or sorry, the reverse Tonto option of the Malibu versus the Wharncliffe. Sharpened edge, about the same, a little tiny bit more for the Kansept, however. There's also a little more complexity to the handle shape with some facets and of course these cutouts going on. And what looks actually like an inside inlay of blue G10 to get you some contrasting color here. But there are of course a few other colors of this available too. Fixed single position pocket clip, milled out of titanium, so it's not deep carry and also not reversible just like the Malibu. Action time though, it all comes down to this. It's good. It's good, but it's not the Malibu. There's a reason the Malibu is still the benchmark. Yeah, this is very good, but it's not quite the Malibu, ladies and gentlemen. I like it though. 113 bucks. Next up, we've got to talk about the Spyderco Smock folder. Especially when the Malibu was new, this was often kind of floated as an alternative to the Malibu right here. Price is even similar. We're $228 for the Smock. It is made in Taiwan, unlike the US-made Malibu. So if that matters to you, that's an easy distinction for you. We've also got, I didn't mention, on the Malibu, we've got a flat grind. We have a hollow grind on this Smock, just like we do on the 14C28N Leek we looked at earlier. But this has, rather than a button lock per se, or at least a plunge style button lock the way the Malibu does it, it is a button actuated version of Spyderco's compression lock. So you actually have essentially an interlocking liner that lifts up and interfaces with a matching cutout in the blade here. Theoretically, this can get you, a potentially crisper action than some button locks out there due to the ability to tune the detent really nicely. Does that hold up? We're not going to do it yet because we haven't talked about the other features. We're going to talk about the action last. Overall length, pretty similar. Let me see if I can get a better view myself. Actually, a little bit longer. I take that back. A little bit longer for the Smock, but significantly less cutting edge there. About half an inch or more cutting edge on the Malibu. Part of that is because they had to leave room here for the pass-through of the button, getting to that compression lock. Peel ply carbon fiber surface and G10 underneath the layer of carbon fiber. So different feel than the Malibu, of course. You can still do the flick open and closed, but a little bit softer. Nice, but I can get this to fail if I try to not actuate it. Whereas the Malibu, you gotta work really hard to get it to not fire. It can be done. It's harder to do though. It's a thing of beauty there. What else we got? Well, this next knife is smaller by a fair bit. This is the X1-Microflip series from Hogue. You do get a modified Wharncliffe blade option, but the length is only about 2 3/4. So, like I said, a lot less. But the reason I wanted to include it here is it's another US-made option with aluminum handles, CPM 154 steel here, so it's a powder metal version of the 154 CM we saw on this Kansept. Edge retention should be similar, but the toughness is going to be higher on this CPM 154. The reason I included it, beyond what I just mentioned, is before the Malibu came along, this was out there, and this had been the best button lock flipping action I had felt at that point. And it's really good. It has a unique feel just to Hogue. I've never felt another button lock flipper feel quite like this. And it can definitely go toe-to-toe with the Malibu, for sure. You've even got the secondary safety switch right there. If folks are looking at this and you're concerned about the potential of accidentally disengaging the button lock while you're working on stuff, secondary safety is nice. However, I think the reason this didn't quite take off the way the Malibu did was, one, Hogue was a smaller player at the time when this came out. The design is also definitely more tactical. It has less of a kind of everyday refined quality as the Malibu. But then more importantly, the Malibu can do this. The X1-Microflip cannot. No matter how hard you flick it, Okay, never mind. If you flick it really hard, you can get it to close, but as you can see, you have to be right on with it. And that has to do with the way they tune their detents here. They actually have a movable plate system that allows them to get that super, super crisp action. In fact, am I gonna say it? It's crisper than the Malibu, but the way they achieved that crispness negates the ability to flick it closed. So it's not as fidgety. Is that important to you? If it is, easy decision. If it's not, maybe check out the X1-Microflip. There's a drop point option in the lineup as well. No deep carry pocket clip, however. It is reversible, however. There you go. All right, now that I've kind of broadened the boundaries a little bit with this smaller knife, what if these blade shapes just don't do it for you? And at the end of the day, these two blade shapes are actually not that different. The actual contour of the sharpened edge is basically the same. It's just a different spine treatment between these two. What if you like some belly on your knife? What if you want a drop point or a higher tip? Well, you don't have to look beyond Pro-Tech's lineup to start off with. The Mordax, a Ferrum Forge collaboration, built the same way as the Malibu. Same materials, aluminum and MagnaCut, a little bit bigger, 3.75, and only a little bit more expensive than the standard Malibu here, $240. So you should expect pretty much the same action as the Malibu. And you know what? That's what you're gonna get. So that's a nice thing. A little bit bigger though. Is this too big? It's a matter of opinion, of course. Even closer, I would say, to the Malibu inside the Pro-Tech lineup is the Cambria. At this point, most of the Cambrias are a little more elevated in terms of their materials combinations. We still have aluminum and MagnaCut on this one, but we have a cool burl inlay. They've also done a lot of these in their high-end stainless steel handles, and they're generally positioning this one as a little bit more of a premium option, especially with the inlays right here. But still, even this more premium option is about $280. You've got a drop point blade in just about the same length, a tiny bit more sharpened edge than the Malibu. I really like how the blade tips down on this blade. Gives you a very different character than the Mordax, which has a very high along the center, above the center line tip compared to the drop point. And in a way, I haven't actually eyeballed this up beforehand, but let me see here. This kind of bridges the gap between the two styles. The tip of the Cambria here is actually lower than the tip of the Malibu when you are holding it in the hand. So you can still use that tip very effectively at dragging cuts, but you have more belly for slicing motions. Kind of interesting. And the action, yeah, that's what a Pro-Tech should feel like right there. Other ones to take a look at, other like button lock flipping action. If the blade shapes, that's not what you're after when you're going for a Malibu. Let's say you're looking at a Malibu because you simply want the best button lock flipping action out there. These last three knives, certainly a place to look. These last three, also worthy of mention. We Knife Company makes a great button lock. They make also the Chevalier we looked at earlier. CIVIVI is their one of their more budget-oriented brands. This right here is a limited edition Kitefin with the button lock, and the reason I picked this over some of the other button locks that are currently in the lineup is a lot of those are a lot bigger than what the Malibu brings to the table, or very, very different. This is a knife that has a similar blend of refinement yet capability. A thinner blade here. This is a Damasteel blade, so it is powder metallurgy. Very similar in its performance to CPM 154 because it's basically the same formulation, however made prettier. Titanium handles with an inlay on this one, and very, very good action. Putting it up against the Malibu, yeah, it's really nice. I actually want to say, like, this Cambria has even better action than this particular Malibu. Everything, of course, has a little bit of variance one to the next. Feels really good. Feels really good, too. I still want to give the edge to the Pro-Tech, though, but that's really, really close. Really cool knife. 3¼ inch drop point blade on that. The other one to check out, or one of the other ones to check out, this knife right here. Very different, obviously, in terms of profile and a different locking mechanism as well. It's not actually a button lock on this mini grouper from Kizer. It is a button actuated top liner lock. I think that's what they're calling it. Essentially, now that the patent has become freely available, or expired, I should say, the compression lock from Spyderco, other companies are putting their own spin on it. They can't call it the compression lock yet, but this is a similar type of thing. And the action they've been able to achieve on this particular knife is very, very good. I'm going to rank it, maybe a step below the Malibu overall, but again, very, very good. Kizer's doing this really well. Vosteed is doing this style of lock really well, but not a lot of flippers that feel Malibu adjacent yet in their lineup. Kansept is also getting in on the action with this style of lock. So it's only a matter of time, I think, before one of them is even better or just as good as the Malibu. But it's something to keep your eyes on, so I definitely wanted to include it in this Beat the Icon. And last but not least, this knife right here, the ZT44. Drop point versus either of the two blade shapes on the Malibu, but similar overall length. More expensive, however. $348 for the ZT right here. You get S45 VN steel. May not be quite as desirable as the MagnaCut. You're not going to get quite the same levels of toughness. On a pocket knife, that might not be as big of a concern, however, and edge retention should be pretty similar between these two. You've also got titanium for the handles, milled out on the inside to remove weight, so the balance on this is really, really nice. Again, has a nice, similar vibe to what the Malibu gives you. It's refined, yet it's capable. Not dainty, not overbuilt. And the action on this knife, you guys, is stellar. I've been saying this since they first come out. If there's any knife that can truly take it to the champ, like the 44 is as close as I've ever felt. Depending on which day you ask me about it, I might even say it's better, but it depends on the day. It feels really, really good. And it's just generally got a great usable profile too. Does it have what it takes? Does it beat the Icon? Do any of these knives beat the Icon? Let me know. Is there another knife out there that you think beats the Icon that wasn't on the list? Also, let me know in the comments. We'll be taking a look and seeing what you folks have to say. In the meantime, to get your hands on any of these knives right here, check out the links in the description, which will take you to KnifeCenter.com. And don't forget about our long-running Knife Rewards program or our Apple Pay or Sezzle payment options at checkout. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center. See you next time.